What's going on, guys? It is, what the hell is today? Wednesday? July the 10th, 2019. Still the All-Star break. So I'm going to be doing what I do every year. I break down round by round the best and worst picks of the draft back in March. However, this year, obviously, I'll be doing it via video rather than typing all of this shit out. Saves myself from carpal tunnel, and it gives one of you guys an opportunity to join me for the show. Now, ordinarily, I'd be bringing in Benjamin Aloysius Nisman. However, Benji texted me last night that he had that he had work to do. He got called to a set, so he is out of commission for today. In his stead will be the guy who's been leading the league for most of this year. It's going to be James McCloskey. How are you, James?
Good, Jeff. Good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no sweat, man. I appreciate you coming on. You know, seeing as we work together and you know, relieve each other, I didn't know if you were going to be able to make it on this year, because every time I record weekly video on Mondays, you're at work. So it's good that I got the opportunity to have you on before the end of the season.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And you know, congratulations on a great season so far. I mean, you've been kicking ass all year. You know, I'm sure you watch the videos every week. It's been a lot of fun seeing a relatively newer manager to this league stand atop the standings for as long as you have.
Oh yeah, for sure. And you know, honestly, too, Joe, it's just great that Ben invited me back in last year to this league, and you know, actually showing that I belong here. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely, sure. We certainly have been proven right in bringing you back in, and you've definitely shown that you belong in this league. Let's get this thing kicked off. You know, round one is really difficult to judge on things like this, because unless you have like one person completely blowing everybody out of the water, or one guy who's missed the entire season, or is just absolutely atrocious, you know, saying a best and worst pick in round one is always, okay, you're splitting hairs. The way this is going to work for most of these rounds is going to be, I'm going to tell you my choice for best pick, worst pick, an interesting pick that I thought was you know, interesting, and give you my insight on that, and then I'll tell you about my pick, and then I'll kick it over to James either for his pick in the round or his thoughts on something else. So let's get this thing underway. For best pick in the first round this year, you got to give it to Christian Yelich. You know, he went number 6 overall to James Santangelo, and he's absolutely lighting the world on fire. I'll say this much: I was ready to take him with the number 7 pick, so James, good on James to not allow me to have arguably the best player in baseball again this season. Worst pick for the first round will go to, and I'm going to say this, and it might be a little surprising considering, you know, the injuries that were in the first round, but I'm going to give it to Paul Goldschmidt. You know, it's a 254 batting average, a 343 on base, 16 homers, 37 RBIs. You just expect a whole lot more out of Goldschmidt this year. And Barry, you know, when the draft was going on, I thought Barry got a very good steal at number 13 with Goldschmidt, and it just hasn't panned out. You know, he's usually a 290 to 300 hitter. You know, he's definitely a 30 homer guy and 100 RBIs, and it's just not panning out this year for that. Interesting pick in the first round was Jake DeGrom at number 8. You know, Jake had an unbelievable season last year, but the one thing that you knew was going to be a problem for him was getting wins and getting run support. And when Nick took him at 8 over guys like Chris Sale and Paul Goldschmidt and Alex Bregman, I found it weird, and I found it like, could DeGrom really live up to that Cy Young potential again? He's been good, but he's nowhere near that, and he's still not getting the run support from the Mets because the Mets are awful. My pick was J.D. Martinez at number 7. When I missed out on Yelich at 6, I took the third piece of my triumvirate of outfielders from last season in Trout, Yelich, and J.D. Martinez. So my entire outfield from last season went in the top 7 picks. Fantastic. I get my guy back, and we move on from there. James, tell me about your pick of Aaron Judge and why you thought that was the way to go, and how you feel about having him finally come back.
Well, I think probably it'll mostly come to fruition in like the next couple of rounds. You'll see what I was going for. And basically, I was just starting off with going with people that had a lot of power, that were going to get me a lot of runs, home runs, things like that. So basically, that's why I took Aaron Judge. I just, barring the injury, I felt he was definitely due for a 40-plus home run season. Probably in the 100 RBI range. Just was going to be a lot of power behind him. And honestly, it's just buying into that the Yankees were going to do that again, as a squad. So, as we go on, it'll definitely become more apparent round by round, especially in the second round where I was going with that.
Yeah.
But I definitely have to agree with you on the best pick is Christian Yelich. Honestly, that kid is something special. I think he'll be doing this for a while now, for years to come. And honestly, I just don't see him slowing down for probably the next couple of years. Definitely going to be an MVP candidate every year for a while.
Yeah, we were talking off the air. He's only 27 years old. He's in a great environment in Milwaukee. We'll see, how far an extension they give him, or if he's able to walk and make some sort of ridiculous money from somebody else. We'll move on to round.
If you remember, Joe.
Yeah.
Remember, I was telling you, if I had the first pick, he was going to be my pick.
Yeah. James was calling it before the season. I will give him credit here. James was saying that if he had the number 1 overall pick, he would have taken Yelich over Trout. And I thought he was crazy, but up until, the last week or so, he's looked really smart with that call. And, I definitely wanted him at 7. I know James wanted to see him fall all the way to 15. That certainly wasn't going to happen. But yeah, James Santangelo definitely scored the winner in that round. We'll jump over to round 2, where we see the best pick, and there were a ton of really good picks in round 2. Obviously, following up, the same kind of situation from round 1. There wasn't really one standout guy, but Charlie Blackmon has had a very, very nice first half for Ari. Picked him at number 28 overall, 330 batting average, 378 on-base percentage, 20 homers, 57 RBIs, 67 runs scored, 21 doubles, 7 triples, and 2 steals. Ari followed up his first-round pick of Nolan Arenado at 5 with Charlie Blackmon. And all season we've been saying, where Ari's going to go as the Rockies go. But I like the strategy, it's get the 2 best guys in the best hitters ballpark who's going to play 82 games or 81 games in Colorado. Smart move. You can't fault him for it. And, there are other things later on that I'll get to about Ari's draft that I didn't like, but when you look at the top 2, it's hard to pick a better 1-2 combination after round 2. The worst pick of that round is going to go to my co-host here, James McCloskey, who picked Giancarlo Stanton at number 18. Now, I know he's been traded to me by now, and he's only played 6 games this season. But man, when you took Stanton at 18 after taking Judge at 15, it was a hell of a statement. It was, okay, we're going outfield strong, we are going power hungry, and It was a hell of a pick. Tell me about it.
Oh yeah, definitely, Jeff. Like I said, it becomes apparent, right? And it's funny. We're going to go to the next round, and you talk about it, and become even more apparent what I was trying to go for here. And honestly, I thought I probably was sitting really in the top 5 of the 2 picks when I got Judge and Stanton.
Yeah.
Across the league, easily I thought, if you take just a few of the other guys were really kind of above where I was at. But I was sitting pretty, I thought, at that point.
Yeah, I remember sitting in the comm center with you when we were drafting, and after you took Judge, I'm pretty sure it was between Harper and Stanton for you in round 2. And when you saw Freddie Freeman go off the board, you kind of knew that you were going to get one of those 2 guys, and you ended up with Stanton. In hindsight, if you had ended up with Harper there, with Judge, it probably would be even more interesting, and you probably would have a better record considering how much you had to wait this first half to get healthy.
Oh yeah, I definitely would have had more points for sure in the wings categories usually with that.
Yeah. Most interesting pick, I'll give it to James Santangelo, followed up Christian Yelich with another guy who was on my squad last year, Blake Snell. Now, on paper, bringing Yelich and Snell together on a squad, it's the NL MVP from last year, it's the AL Cy Young winner. It makes all the sense in the world. You've got your number one bat, you've got your number one pitcher. My question for that pick though was: is Snell gonna live up to the hype what he did the year prior? And you're paying a hell of a big price tag coming off of a Cy Young season. Is he able to live up to that? And so far, he really hasn't. He's been really, really struggling as of late. He's 5-7 with a 4.70 ERA, a 1.29 WHIP. He's got 122 strikeouts, so the strikeout numbers are still there. But man, he is nowhere near what he did last year in his 21-win season, his 1.89 ERA. It's definitely... what's that?
I want to just point out that, Joe. It's going to be crazy as we dive deeper into this show. Mm-hmm. We're going to take a look at those top three pitchers that we picked, and it's just going to tell a really crazy story of just how the season's been. Because looking a little bit further down the line when we dip into the third round, we'll start to see another pitcher that was taken in a top spot that just hasn't had quite the season you'd expect.
Right.
But please go on. Sorry.
Yeah, no, there's a ton of pitchers at the top, and it's a season. It's a season that's piggybacking off of last year, where the ball is just absolutely flying out of the yard, and there's not really that one pitcher other than maybe Max Scherzer who's having that year where you go, wow, this guy is shutting everybody down. These guys are getting hit. They're getting hit hard a lot, and if you were spending one of your top three draft picks on a pitcher, which the vast majority of us did, you're running the risk of saying, okay, well, he might get shelled sometimes, he might get wrecked, but he's one of the best in the league. My pick in round 2 was Francisco Lindor at 26. Now, when I was sitting there at round 2 after taking JD Martinez, I didn't want Lindor to fall to me because of his injuries early in the season. I didn't want to have to make that decision. I wanted to go with somebody like Blake Snell or a pitcher here so that I could lock up my first 2 and then finish my strategy through the first 5 rounds. But when Lindor fell to me, it was almost too good a player to pass up at that point, because you see guys like Javier Baez and Manny Machado and Trevor Story and all these middle infielders were starting to fly off the board. And if I could get my hands on a guy like Lindor, who, had he not had the calf injury, would have been a first-round pick, I'm almost guaranteeing that, to have him fall to me in round 2 was like Christmas for me. So he missed a couple of weeks of the season and has been absolutely amazing for me. 296, 14 homers, 32 RBIs, 13 steals. So the steals numbers have not been affected by the calf injury. It was a risk that I was afraid I was going, like when it fell to me, I was afraid it was a risk that I was willing to take, but I really didn't want to have to make that decision. I wanted somebody else to take him before he got to me. But I took I ended up taking him, and I've loved him all season.
And
go ahead.
Joe, I just want to mention in that second round, one of the picks I definitely liked was honestly Frank's picks about a kid that you and me both have talked about that definitely has a high-end cap for potential, and that's Javi Baez. Mm-hmm. Shortstop for the Cubs. Really looking good this year. 289 average, 22 home runs, 62 RBIs, 59 runs. I mean, he's definitely doing great. I just kind of like an honorable mention, for a second round.
Absolutely.
Definitely having a great season.
Yeah, it was great to get my hands on Baez as well.
Okay.
It was good to get my hands on Baez. Especially only trading away JD Martinez for him and Juan Soto, his third round pick. Baez has had a great season, and he's an all-star, and he absolutely deserves to be. He's definitely on pace for another 30-homer season and another 100 RBIs. So, he's an absolutely great pick. My honorable mention will go to Trevor Story. He is, also having a great season. 19 homers, 50 RBIs, 12 steals. We'll move on to round 3, and the best pick of the first 5 rounds, buddy. It's yours. It's Cody Bellinger at number 47, 336 average, 432 on base, 30 homers, 71 RBIs, 70 runs scored, 19 doubles and 8 steals, man. I know this was partly a homer pick, but I feel like it was also, you really had your eye on this guy. Tell me about this pick.
All I want to say, Joe, is the power. Honestly, the first 3 rounds, I felt really great at that point, with Judge, Stanton, and Bellinger. And truthfully, he wasn't initially the individual I was going for right away. Unfortunately, Nick ended up picking up Rhys Hoskins. I was kind of looking at Hoskins at first because I remember we talked about this before, and I said, don't be surprised if Hoskins has a better season than Bryce Harper. And he's just the guy I've watched in spring training last year. He's looked amazing. So when Cody Bellinger fell to me, I felt, very fortunate that he did. I definitely thought he was going to go a little bit sooner than that, and it was just a great pickup, honestly. Possible, MVP candidate here, just behind Christian Yelich, honestly.
Yeah, he's been everything you could have asked for. He was hitting like 400 in May. And hitting like 370 in June. So I mean, he's been absolutely lights out for you. As far as your Rhys Hoskins will be better than Bryce Harper statement, you're not wrong. I mean, Rhys Hoskins got a better average, more home runs, and a better on base percentage than Bryce Harper. So, and that's just like eyeballing that. I had forgotten you had said that, and yeah, you're absolutely hitting the nail on the head with that. Worst pick in round 3, I'm going to have to hit on my other co-host. It's going to be Benjamin Aloysius Nisman with his pick of Joey Votto at number 36. 268 batting average, 360 on-base percentage, only 8 homers, 22 RBIs, 44 runs scored, 17 doubles, and 2 steals. He's not atrocious, but he's not Joey Votto. He's not what he has been in the past. The 268 average is bad. He's coming off a season where he only hit 12 homers and only drove in 67 RBIs. It looks like he might have a few more homers than that. He might be on pace for, 15 or so. But those RBI totals just aren't there. The walk totals are still there. The on-base percentage should be higher. He's only got 41 walks on the season. He hasn't had less than 100 since an injury-plagued season in 2014. I just don't like this pick. It was so... It fell into what Ben wanted to do, right? Ben wanted high upside on-base percentage guys who walked a ton. And Votto fit that mold. I just don't think that this was the smart move, especially considering a guy like, I don't know, Matt Carpenter went in that round. He's got just as many walks. He's actually got more walks than Joey Votto. A guy like Juan Soto went in that round. There were more guys in that round that could have. I mean, obviously Cody Bellinger went in that round, and he's first base eligible. It's a rough pick. It could have played out wonderfully because Votto's been, a top 2 round guy in years past. I just don't think that. I think he and Goldschmidt are sort of the next wave of guys in that Pujols and Cabrera mold, where they're getting older, they're aging, they're falling off. They're the next 2 to go, and the new wave of first basemen are coming in.
I definitely agree with you on that one, Joe, as the worst pick. Just for me alone, it's of course last year's stats, but also the fact that he's now 36.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of red flags with Joey Votto right now, and I would imagine next year this is probably a guy that we'll see drastically drop in the draft at where he gets picked up at.
Yeah, I see him more in the middle rounds, 7 through like 12, somewhere in there next year. And
Definitely.
I mean, I don't think
like a 10th round pick.
Yeah, I don't foresee him have like he very well could have a renaissance next year and hit 20 homers, drive in 85 runs, and have a batting average closer to 300 if he's able to change the way he's playing. I don't know what it is, but something hasn't been right with Joey Votto in about a season and a half now, and it shows. Moving to most interesting pick, we're going to give it to Walker Buehler, number 37 off the board to Ari. Buehler, as a rookie, pitched over 160 innings between regular season and postseason last year. And coming into the season, I was concerned that his arm going to hold up. Could you count on him to take that next step to 180 to 200 innings and be an ace of your staff? And to be honest, I was willing to take that risk. I just didn't get a chance to take him because he went 2 picks before me. I know you were really high on Buehler as well, James. And as a Dodgers fan, tell me what you see in Walker Buehler.
Just in general, though, Joe, I think in like Ari and looking at this, it's always so hard to pass up young, talented guys in a league that's so long. You know what I mean? Like, I just see, Walker Buehler, he's a hard thrower. There's just so much potential for this kid. And what we saw him do in the postseason was just amazing. And honestly, I thought he would just continue that trend from the postseason going into the season. And, yeah. Yes and no. I mean, we've seen a flashes few games. He does have an 8-1 record for sure. But definitely hasn't been, I would say, as dominant as I thought he would be. He
had a really rough start to the season, but he's definitely, other than the start in Colorado recently, he's been really good.
Yeah.
So he's definitely on the come, but I'm with you. I'm still concerned about workload. He's at 100 innings so far. I'm still concerned about workload, and I wouldn't be surprised if he had one of those famous Dodger Phantom DL stints between now and the end of the season, just to keep him fresh for the playoffs.
I mean, Dave Roberts is always notorious for putting guys on the DL.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
My pick in this round was Trevor Bauer. When Buehler went off the board, he was basically the last guy I believed in as a true ace. I didn't want to have to count on, Carlos Carrasco, who's had health issues, Steven Strasburg, who's had health issues, or any of the guys who go in round 4. So for me, Bauer was the last one to go, and I was happy to get him. I really thought he was going to put together a Cy Young worthy season after a really great 2018. He pitched to a 2.21 ERA, over 200 strikeouts and 175 innings. He's a guy that you can kind of count on to pitch 200 innings now because he throws so deep into games. He's never thrown 200 innings in his career, but the vast majority of that is because he didn't have any kind of effectiveness early in his career. And last year, he got injured late in the season on a comebacker that cost him the last month and a half of the season. So, if it wasn't for that comebacker, he throws 200 innings last year, and he's definitely past all of the effectiveness issues, where he was pitching to a 4 ERA because last year shows that he was able to do so. He hasn't been as good as last year, and that's part of the reason I shipped him off in the Verlander trade. I thought, if I can upgrade at my ace, I feel like I'm ready to go to war. And do I think Bauer could turn it around? Sure, he's a smart guy. He's definitely talented enough to figure it out. But I'm also concerned that he gets traded at the deadline, and the team that's in the lead to get him is the New York Yankees. And a guy like Bauer who gives up the long ball and has a problem with walks, you do not want to have him in a place like Yankee Stadium. Any thoughts on that?
Joe, I just want to bring up a kind of an odd trend that we're seeing here. You take a lot of these first 3-4 round pick pitchers, and it just seems like a lot of them didn't get going until June.
Yeah.
Parts of June or late May. That's when we really started seeing like picking it up a little bit. But it's just odd, all these Cy Young candidates and aces that just we're struggling in April and part of May, and now are finally picking it up. And there's really no guarantee that the second half of the season going to be that much better for them.
True.
And is this just the trend we're going to see across the board? Is it something that carries over to next draft strategy? It's just really hard to tell, right? I mean, it's because honestly, I was with you. I thought Trevor Bauer was a lock for the AL Cy Young, and man, I could not have been more wrong. I mean, honestly, I guess I did call that.
Yeah, I mean, he was definitely a guy I targeted. I mean, we targeted him in the league we own together at work. He's been okay. He's been fine. He would be great if he were a number 2 on your team. If you went up and got Chris Sale or Justin Verlander or somebody else in the top 2 rounds. That Max Scherzer's another good one. If you had gotten one of those guys early and then paired him with Trevor Bauer, that would be amazing. But I drafted Bauer as my ace, and I can't say I was thrilled with his performance before I traded him.
Well, honestly, too, Joe, before you skip, I mean, that's actually a great point. Thinking about it, like I'm looking at these picks. We got DeGrom, Chris Sale, Walker Buehler, Trevor Bauer, Noah Syndergaard, and it just goes back to that trend we were talking about. And honestly, before the start of the season, I would have taken any of those guys. That's my number 1. Yeah, hands down. Don't get me wrong, Chris Sale is finally coming around. For the past couple months, month and a half, he's definitely looking like old Chris Sale. But we take Blake Snell. Yeah.
I mean, Sale kind of stumbled into the All-Star break with 2 clunkers, and his ERA is over 4 now with only a 3-8 record. But there was a stretch there where he was absolutely dominating, and you were still getting the strikeout numbers with him. So. But
another guy too that I'm seeing in the second round that was taken was Corey Kluber on the DL.
Yeah, somebody just traded for him in the league. I wonder who that was.
That's right. Hey, I feel I still got a good pick in that one.
You did, and
we'll talk about that one later, right?
Yeah, we'll probably talk about that tomorrow. I have Bobby as my guest with Ben tomorrow for week 14, so we'll get his thoughts as well. You know what? Let's just do that now. On your side, what were you thinking in that trade? It's Matt Chapman for Corey Kluber, straight up.
Honestly, it goes back to leaving talent on the bench. Unfortunately, I've just always looked at Matt Chapman as a home runs and RBI guy for the most part. He's not going to get any stolen bases. He's just not that fast of a guy where we're going to see triples or doubles out of him. Well, not a high amount of doubles, right?
Right.
So really with who I have in my third base spot, and especially a guy that I got, I would say relatively cheap, is Jose Ramirez. And he's starting to show why he was a MVP candidate last year, for sure. I mean, he's starting to finally get going. Going back to like we were talking about how just certain pitchers are taking a while. It looks like Mr. Ramirez is taking a while to get going, and now that he is, he's throwing up some really great numbers for the month of June and going into the very first week of July here, before the All-Star break. He's looking pretty good. So it gives me the opportunity to trade a guy like Matt Chapman. And honestly, too, when I look at my rotation, a lot of people, always forget I still have Jameson Taillon, who's I'm sure going to hopefully make a end of July appearance, maybe beginning of August. But he'll put into a starting rotation of Eduardo Rodriguez, Ryu, Paddock, Gray, and Kluber, which I feel will give me one of the strongest starting rotations in the league.
Yeah, it looks like you're about to go to war, and you've got, one of the best picks of the draft coming up here in a few rounds that we'll talk about on your team. But that rotation is not, it's not anything to sneeze at. And adding Corey Kluber and getting Jameson Taillon back, that's going to be a formidable, I would say, top 5 with Ryu, Taillon, Kluber, Paddock, and Gray. It'll be interesting to see how. Now you just got to hope none of them, neither Tyone or Kluber, have setbacks, but we'll see how they make it back.
Deal with that when it comes, right?
Exactly. Jump to round 4, and best pick of that round goes to Mike Sherman at number 55. He takes Gleyber Torres, 292 average, 360 on base percentage, 19 homers, 50 RBIs, and 56 runs scored in the first half. Kid's been lights out, and the Yankees dealt with a whole lot of injuries in the first half, and Gleyber Torres was not one of them. He's been there the entire time, and he's helped carry the team to their first place standing at this point. Worst pick of the second round, or the fourth round rather. It's gonna go 2 picks earlier, and it's Edwin Diaz to Andy Solar Greco. Man, I loved me some Edwin Diaz last year on my fantasy team, and I loved that the Mets traded for him, and I thought this is exactly what we needed, and what the fuck did the Mets do to this guy? He's all of a sudden just absolutely fallen apart. 4 blown saves, 19 saves on the season, a 1-6 record with an ERA of 5.5. He's been an absolute fucking mess. The most interesting pick was Jason Ashby at number 62 with Adalberto Mondesi. Now, Mondesi was a hype guy coming into the season. There were talks that he was going to have 50 to 60 steals. And, you could see it. He's one of the fastest guys in baseball. But the question was, is he going to get on base enough? The question was, is he going to, be able to hit well enough? Because that Royals team is young, and they're going to let him struggle if he wants to struggle at the top or the middle of that order. But it's a question of, if he struggles so badly, if he was hitting like 180 in May, would they drop him to the end of the order and move Billy Hamilton up? And then you're kind of neutering his at-bats, you're neutering his steal attempts, you're neutering everything that he's had. He hasn't been awful, I'll say that. He's hit 268 with 7 homers, 51 RBIs, 44 runs scored, 28 steals, and that's really what it is. But the thing is, he's only got a 298 on base percentage. He's just kind of a little bit better hitting Billy Hamilton. He's had 16 walks all season to 94 strikeouts. Granted, he's young. He's really young. And maybe he improves, maybe he matures into a decent hitter. But man, this is a guy you want, as Lou Brown said in Major League, with your speed, you need to be hitting the ball on the ground and legging him out. I don't know if he's really going to be the 14 homer guy that we saw last year. Any thoughts on him?
Yeah, and honestly, Joe, I see where Jason was coming from. It goes back to, like we've always talked about, with just this plethora of young, talented guys in MLB right now. When they come your way in the draft, it really is hard to not go and take a chance on that guy. And especially someone who showed flashes of being really talented last year. I get where Jason's coming from. But I do have to agree with the Gleyber Torres as the best pick. I mean, it seems like any Yankee you can grab, right, turns to gold. Except for the top 2 that I picked.
Yeah.
I mean,
just to piggyback off the Mondesi pick, Jason went with Max Scherzer at number 3, and then Benintendi, Whit Merrifield, and now Adalberto Mondesi. So you can see what he was trying to do. He was trying to find, at least 20 guys, but upside, 20-40 guys in Merrifield and Mondesi. It's gotten him to the top 6 so far. He's in the running for the playoffs. We'll see if it carries him all the way there. My pick in this round was at number 58, and I took Tommy Pham. Now, I didn't want Tommy Pham. I mean, I loved him, and I thought he was going to be great coming into the season. I wanted to get him one round later. But when I saw a whole bunch of outfielders go off the board in the 3rd round, guys like Chris Davis and Rhys Hoskins, Juan Soto, your pick of Cody Bellinger, and then I was staring it down, and I wanted George Springer so bad. Last year, he got sniped from me in the 2nd round, and I had to settle for J.D. Martinez. That turned out to be great. This year, I wanted him again because I was getting a discount off of the injury-plagued season he had. And he went one pick before me to Nick Homan, so I ended up settling for Tommy Pham. Well, guess what? George Springer's been injured again this past year. You know, he's only played 59 games. Granted, but Tommy Pham has had a great year. 281 average, 379 on-base percentage, 13 homers, 8 steals, 38 RBIs. He's on pace, you know, for a solid 2020 season. And that's exactly what I wanted out of this fourth-round guy, was a guy who could upside me 20 steals and, you know, at least hit me 20 bombs.
Oh, for sure. I mean, actually, too, I remember in our joint draft, I was looking at Tommy Pham, and yeah, just a huge upside to that guy right now.
Yeah.
I think for the Vegas native, just probably a lot more to come from him.
Absolutely.
It's funny, as we touch on these next couple of rounds, you can definitely see a trim that I'm going to bring up here, and it just really solidifies this individual's position at where he's at now, and as we go along in this thing.
Okay.
It's kind of funny. We'll just see it, and then I'll bring it up by the 6th round.
Okay. Sounds good. Let's real quick before we jump to round 5, hit on your pick of Jameson Taillon, who was going to be your ace after taking 3 big boppers in the first 3 rounds. Tell me about Taillon.
All right, so definitely at that point, and when you just go back to our earlier conversation of how many pitchers went off the board, I was definitely just looking for the next best thing. You know what I mean? I saw Chris Sale go. I saw Syndergaard go. You know what I mean? DeGrom go. I'm like, all right, I'm going to fall back really quickly here. I need an ace. And the sad part is, it's a guy that honestly I got a few starts out of, and then that was it. Yeah. And he's been injured. So I've hung on to him this long. I still believe he is a top quality pitcher, and I'm hopeful that he comes back and shows that. Yep. In the upcoming time.
Yeah, and you've only got 7 starts out of him. He wasn't exactly great in those 7 starts, but maybe that has to do with the injury. Maybe he was kind of hindered by that injury early on. We'll see when he comes back how good he is, and if he's able to put together a good couple of months, to finish out the season for you. We'll jump to round 5, and the best pick of this round goes to Jimmy Dunlap, who took Gary Sanchez at number 75. Now, the big thing about Gary Sanchez, his rookie season, he was a monster at the plate. He hit 20 homers, and then the following year he hit 33 and 90 with a 278 batting average. And coming into last year, he was a first-round pick. He went, I want to say, in the top 8 or 9 picks last year, and was an absolute disaster. Just in every possible facet of the game was an absolute abject disaster. So this year, to have him fall to the 5th round was a huge discount, and Jimmy definitely capitalized on it. The guy's hit 24 home runs, which is already more than he hit last year in 89 games. Sanchez is at 24 in 68 games. He already has more RBIs than he had last year. He's definitely hitting better. He's got, his strikeout numbers are going to be up, but everybody's are across baseball. He's been amazing, and to lock up the best catcher in baseball in round 5, where he went in the first round last year, is a huge discount. The worst pick of the 5th round, there were a couple of pretty bad ones. I'm going to give it to, obviously, Jesus Aguilar, who went to Andy Solar Greco at number 76, right after Gary Sanchez. Aguilar had an absolute breakout season last year, 35 homers, 108 RBIs. This year, he can't even find the field with regularity. He's hitting 225, 8 homers, 32 RBIs. It's just been an absolute disaster. And it's a back-to-back bad picks from Andy, where he took Edwin Diaz in round 4, and now Aguilar in round 5. And, he's sitting in 13th place. This is probably the reason why. The most interesting pick for the round is going to go to Ari. He took Vlad Guerrero. We knew Vlad was going to miss probably the first month because of the bullshit contract situation that exists in MLB. He goes at number 69, nice, and Yeah. He's only hitting 249 with 8 homers and 25 RBIs this year. He's a rookie. You don't know what you were going to get. There was all kinds of speculation that he was going to be a 300 hitter. He was going to compete for a batting title this year. He was going to hit 35 homers. And I think the aspirations of what was expected of him were just way too high. You know, a 5th round pick for a rookie third baseman when guys like that's a bad example. When guys like Justin Turner are still on the board, you know, that's a much more safe option that went 25 picks after this. Finally,
You know, honestly,
yeah, go ahead, James.
Goes back to, you know, I get it with Vlad. You know, it's just so hard to pass up that temptation, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're all guys here in this league that watch MLB TV, MLB Network, you know, and we just hear so much about these young guys and what they're going to do. And honestly, you know, from the manager standpoint, for like you look at Justin Turner, he's the safe guy, right?
Yeah.
He's been a consistent hitter, you know, but is there that possibility Vlad's numbers are better at the end? Sure, and you're just taking that shot on him, right? You're taking that chance. And so I get where Ari's coming from. Like, you know, you just see that there, and you're like, man, it's such a high ceiling for this kid.
Yeah.
Why not take that chance?
And the home run derby
It's a big risk.
Yeah, this home run derby that he was just in very well might be the catalyst to get him going in the second half. I could still see him getting upwards of 20 homers. You know, he's only got 8 right now. Could I see him hitting 12 in the second half? Sure. Could I see him ending up with somewhere near 70 RBIs? Maybe. You know.
Maybe.
You know.
Sure, it's a possibility.
It's possible. You know, I think next year it'll be interesting to see. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where Vlad goes next year, because as a 5th round pick this year, you know, could I see him drop a couple of rounds and somebody get him at a discount? Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
My pick in the 5th round.
A young kid, when they show those flashes of like just high end talent, it's just so tempting, you know, as a
always
draft manager, not to grab that kid.
Always. My pick in the 5th round was Jose Barrios, and now coming into the year, I again wanted to draft just like I did last year. I wanted to get 2 outfielders, 2 starters, and a first baseman by round 5, and having Lindor fall to me in the 2nd round sort of threw a monkey wrench in there, but I still end up with my 2 outfielders and my 2 pitchers by round 5, along with a shortstop. I feel really good about that. Barrios has been very solid for me. You know, a 3 ERA, 104 strikeouts over 117 innings. He's been great. He's been the Twins' ace. He's been everything I could have asked for.
Honestly, Joe, crazy is with the way the year's gone, that's actually one of the better starting pitchers.
Yeah.
You take it by the 5th round. You know, you would not think that with all the guys that went off the board, that Joe Schubert with Jose Barrios would be getting one of the best guys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It just doesn't seem logical, right?
Yeah, I wanted to pair up. I wanted to pair up Bauer with a solid number 2, and you know, Barrios is the ace of the Twins. I liked the Twins coming into the season. I told you, you know, watch out for the Twins. They've put together a really nice lineup. Their pitching staff isn't as terrible as people think, and here they are, like 5, 6, 7 games up in the Central at the All-Star break.
What's funny is that's something you and I both agreed upon, and you'll see it in later rounds of the draft that I bought heavy into the Twins.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, talented team.
Yeah, you bought into
for a few years.
Yeah, you bought into Gene Segura in round 5. Tell me about him.
I think Gene Segura just goes back to needed some of those infield spots, but it kind of goes off of what I was saying about young talent. We've seen a guy like Gene Segura. He's just been kind of solid. You know, is he that amazing player? Yeah, but he's just a solid guy. And he has been for the past couple years. And
sure.
I'm actually really happy with that pick. He fluctuates a lot, which I would say is probably one of his biggest downsides, is that we're talking about a guy who will go 0 for 4 for at least like a whole series, you know, in each game. and you get frustrated with him, but then he just turns right back around and becomes that solid hitter again.
Yeah.
And he's a safe pick.
Yeah.
Honestly.
It was definitely a high floor type of pick. You know, you knew you were getting probably a 300 hitter with double-digit homers and probably double-digit steals. You know, he hasn't been running as much as you would have liked, but because he's only got 7 steals on the season after having looks like 6 straight seasons of 20 or more steals. So, you know, but at the end of the day, he's still a solid hitter. He's in a great lineup in Philadelphia, and you know, I think he's going to be great for you in the second half.
So do I. And like I said, he's just. It goes back to like you're talking about. You take Justin Turner, and it's one of those. They're just safe picks.
Yeah.
You know, they're guys that are going to hit. They're going to get you stats. They're going to get you numbers, and win you some columns. Yeah, some categories for sure.
Absolutely. We'll jump to round 6. Best pick of that round is going to go to the number one pick in that round. Went to Josh Hader at number 81 was Josh Donaldson. You know, coming into the season, I was off of Josh Donaldson completely. I wanted nothing to do with this guy. You know, he had played a grand total of about maybe 50 games in 2018. He had an injury-plagued 2017. His legs just were giving up on him, and I wanted nothing to do with this guy. Josh bought in, and 250 average, 361 on base, 18 homers, 45 RBIs, 49 runs scored. You'll take that at third base. You know what? He's doing a hell of a lot better than Vlad Guerrero. Who was taken around earlier. It's definitely a good pick for Josh, despite his struggles this early in the season. Disappointing and worst pick goes to Mike Sherman at number 87 of Miguel Andujar. I was really high on Miguel Andujar coming into this season. You know, the kid hit 40-something doubles last year and 27 homers. I thought that those doubles could translate to more homers this year, and he could be definitely a 30 to 40 homer guy with 100 RBIs in the middle of that absolutely stacked Yankees lineup. The unfortunate part is that his shoulder fell apart.
Yeah, that's just a sad thing to see for such a talented kid. Honestly, I too was really high on him going into the season, and yeah, I get where Mike's coming from for that pick.
Yeah,
it's just unfortunately injuries turn it into the worst pick.
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
So, you know, unfortunately for Mike, worst pick. But at the time, I get you, man.
I loved the pick at the time. It's just unfortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah. The interesting pick of the round is going to go to David Dahl by James Santangelo at number 91. You know, Dahl had never played more than 77 games in the majors coming into this season. And he missed all of 2017 with injury. 2018 was sort of his comeback from that injury. So would Colorado play him? They're notorious for not playing their young kids and playing, you know, older veterans over guys like David Dahl. You know, could he stay healthy? And the fact that you had to pay a top 100 pick, a 6th rounder, for a guy that was so unproven it was risky. It was incredibly risky. And here he is, 308 average, 12 homers, 51 RBIs, 55 runs scored, a 352 on base percentage. He's been solid. He's been absolutely solid. 23 doubles is huge. You know, he's been as good as you could ask for. And James got a good one in that pick.
Oh, for sure. I mean, he's an all-star now. He's just, I think, you know, it's one of those young kids we knew, you know, had a high ceiling, had a high cap, was going to be good, and it's just good to see you starting off.
Exactly. I took Jose Abreu one pick earlier at 90, and the guy is leading the AL in RBIs. You know, 278 average, 21 homers, 66 RBIs, and 44 runs scored. I had said I wanted to get 2 outfielders, 2 pitchers, and a first baseman by round 5. Well, here's my first baseman in round 6. So I stuck to my guns. I got what I wanted. I was definitely getting a discount on Abreu this year because of his year last year. You know, his batting average dropped, his on base percentage dropped. He was injured a couple of times. You know, he had that testicular torsion issue and then the infection that followed, which ended his season after 128 games. So he wasn't able to get to the 100 RBI threshold that he had each of the first 4 years that he was in the majors beforehand. He's well on his way back to that this year. And I definitely got him at a discount. Last year I think he was a 3rd or 4th rounder, and I get him in the 6th this year. So that was really where I wanted to.
Honestly, Joe, I got to say that was actually a great pick in that one, because we're talking about a guy that probably by the end of the season, you review this draft again, and he might be the number 1 pick of the 6th round. I mean,
sure,
he's just been a solid kid all year. And like I said, I actually love the pick. He was somebody I was kind of looking at, definitely going into this draft. In fact, like I've told you before, I just really like the White Sox roster. I think it's such a young, talented roster.
Yeah, I really like the White Sox coming into the season as well. It can show by how I drafted, in my team construction now. I think they're going to be. I think this year was going to be. They're going to be about 500, maybe a couple of games under. Next year, they're going to be fighting with the Twins for that Central title. Your pick, your pick was Jonathan VR. Tell me about Johnny VR.
Once again, just kind of looking for those infield positions. Just looking the way the draft went, I felt it was kind of falling behind in some of those spots, and really needed just another solid hitter. And I will say the one thing VR that worries me is just the team he plays on at the end of the day.
Well, and you might luck out because the Orioles have been horrible. They may trade VR to a contender, and that would be huge for you. That's
my hope.
Yeah, I mean, he's got double-digit steals, which is what you were looking for in that pick. He's already got 10 homers. He's been good, and if he gets traded to somewhere that needs him, it will be huge for you.
I think so, and we're talking about a team that I kind of refer to now as the Cleveland Browns of baseball. It's just tough whenever, and I get we're picking guys off individual stats, but we all know in this game, especially coming towards the end of the season or playoff time, for us, our playoff time, the better the team is, a lot of times it just really sends those players on that roster to become even better.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the more teams go down, sometimes even more talented players will start to slip with that team.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
That's probably my biggest worry about Jonathan VR right now is the Orioles aren't really showing any improvement.
No.
Hands down, the worst record in the league. And I would just hate to see him get wrapped up into it. And there's a possibility that I will definitely be eyeing the trade deadline and where to see if he gets traded at all, or if not, maybe pulling back on the reins at the second base spot with him and filling it with somebody else at this point.
That'll be interesting to see, and we'll be keeping an eye on that as well. We'll jump to round 7. Kirby Yates is your best pick at number 99 by Jason Ashby. All of these top end closers go in the 4th, 5th round. Jason waited, and he landed the best closer this year. He's already got 30 saves. He's got 60 strikeouts in 39 innings, a 1.15 ERA, and an 0.79 WHIP. This guy's been everything he could have asked for and more. We actually saw him when we were in San Diego close out a game against the Mets. He's been lights out, and Jason gets a very, very he gets an absolutely wonderful pick there. The worst pick goes to another closer in round 7. That's Corey Knebel by Chris Levy. It seems like Knebel coming into the season already, I don't know if he had the injury already, but he definitely didn't play this season. So I'm thinking he picked up the injury, late in spring training, and it ends up being Tommy John surgery, and he is gone for the year. So regular season pitches, I have thrown just as many as Corey Knebel. The most interesting pick of the round goes to A.J. Pollock at number 107 to Jimmy Dunlap. Pollock is a high-risk, high-reward type guy, and I don't know if this is going to be, he's never been healthy. He had one healthy season in 2015 where he played 157 games, 20 homers, 76 RBIs, hit 315. He's never had a healthy season since. Since then, it's been 112, 113 are his peak for the number of games he's going to play, and he's not going to get to that number this year. If he could if he could have stayed healthy, there was upside of him being a top 75, top 60 player, but he didn't. And once again, it's another lost season for A.J. Pollock. He's supposed to come back off the DL on Friday to start the second half. So if you get a good second half out of him, I guess it might be worth the 7th round pick, especially if if Jimmy can push to the playoffs with him. But man, I just couldn't see spending a 7th round pick on that guy. And I had the opportunity to draft him. I didn't. I went in another direction with my outfield spot. As a Dodgers fan, how do you feel about A.J. Pollock?
Honestly, Joe, I find that one kind of interesting, too, for where they got him. And it really just goes back to the Dodgers roster. Is he somebody the Dodgers need every game? No. And it's just because they're stacked right now, especially in the outfield position. We even knew going into the season, as baseball fans and then as analysts and everything, he just wasn't going to see that much playing time. A lot of the argument is, well, they're paying him that money. Of course they will, but we're starting to see, like Alex Verdugo, talented kid. Chris Taylor's still shown to be signs of decent, Jock Peterson, Cody Bellinger. I mean, that's just to name some of the outfielders that we had at the Dodgers organization that you see. I just don't really get it so much for the Pollock pick.
Yeah.
I just never saw him seeing a lot of playing time in general. And I know the argument was, well, you signed him to that contract, you pay him that money, he's going to see a lot of playing time. And even when he was healthy, not so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just a guy the Dodgers don't really need or have to have every day.
Right. And the thing is, if they want to keep Pollock healthy, they might, sit him every couple of games and keep Verdugo in the lineup and keep Jock in the lineup just to keep Pollock fresh and healthy. There's no guarantee this guy comes back from this elbow thing and stays healthy. He could go out there tomorrow and rip apart his knee and be done for the year. Like, it's just that kind of guy. He is the Grady Sizemore of this generation, and it's an absolute shame because the guy's pretty talented.
Well, it goes back to actually when you first got traded to the Dodgers. You and I were talking about, what do you keep him for? Every other game, every couple games, but more or less you're keeping him for a playoff guy.
Yeah.
You're hoping, in these playoff runs you can bring him in a few games, if not the whole series, to get you a little more solid contact and keep him healthy going into that. And that's what I said for a starting center fielder on your roster. I just probably would have avoided that myself.
Yeah. I took Michael Conforto here at number 103. It was kind of a homer pick. I needed a third outfielder, and I needed to have a Met. I thought that Conforto, coming off of a decent 2018 with 28 homers and 82 RBIs, if the Mets were going to be what I thought they were going to be, Conforto was going to be a catalyst for that. He hasn't been. He's hit 240. He's right in line with what he was doing last year, just minus the RBI totals. His strikeout numbers are still pretty bad. His on-base percentage is fine at .359. There's just not any growth off of last season, which is what I expected to see.
And with a guy like Conforto, he's kind of like, he's just a schizophrenic player, I think.
Yeah.
We'll see like 1 or 2 games in a series, he will just be lights out and looks amazing, and then he just goes dormant for like 2 or 3 series, and it's just weird. It's kind of something that I think is kind of spread around the whole Mets organization.
Yeah.
Right now,
the only guys who are playing well. Yeah, the only guys who are playing well offensively are Pete Alonso and Jeff McNeil, who are rookie and sophomore players. So we'll see how we end up ruining them.
Players.
Yeah.
We see a couple of good games out of them, and then for some reason, for like a whole couple series, they just stop. And then they'll come back, have a couple solid games, and just stop. And but it's something that you just see with that organization right now, and so hopefully something that can change in the second half.
I hope so.
Yeah.
James, you went with Joey Gallo here in the 7th round, and it was at that point that I turned to you in our comm center, and I looked at you and I said, "You're going to have like 1 billion strikeouts this season. Tell me about Joey Gallo's pick. It has paid off, I'll say that. Other than that injury, he's been really good for you.
Well, I said earlier in the show, Joe, the power. Honestly, when you looked at my outfit at that point, it's just, there's a lot of power there, a lot of home runs, a lot of RBIs. I thought at the time, I remember I turned around to you and said I felt I had, hands down, the best outfield.
Oh, yeah.
Out of the whole league, easily.
Oh, yeah.
And even to this day, it's something I still feel strongly towards. But I want to mention before we get too far here, give props to Ben. Ben did something, and from about round 4 on, that would solidify him being the number 1 spot. So in round 4, he took Kenley Jansen. Round 5, he took Chapman. Round 6, he ended up taking, where's he at here?
Tanaka.
Tanaka. And what's funny is, leaving out Tanaka, but his bullpen has been amazing.
Oh, yeah.
And it was quietly done, I think, because watching the draft, I just didn't really think about it. But now seeing where he's at and how dominant his pitching has been, it really was a great move. And definitely props to Ben. It's funny, I was looking at this yesterday and I was like, you sneaky devil.
Yeah.
Didn't even realize it, but he was just building something pretty amazing.
Yeah, I'm willing to bet he saw Edwin Diaz go off the board in round 4, and then saw Blake Trinan go off the board 3 picks later, and was like, well, I'm getting my top 2 closers the next 2 picks. And he did. He went with Jansen and went with Chapman. And other than Bobby, who took Roberto Ozuna at the turn, nobody else took a closer. Let this be a lesson to all you guys. Ben is going to do this every single year. As soon as the closer run opens, Ben's going to grab 2, maybe 3, depending on where they all fall. We let 2 of the top closers fall to him, and in between those picks went Adalberto Mondesi, Eugenio Suarez, Lorenzo Cain, Roberto Ozuna, Jack Flaherty, Patrick Corbin. I'm not saying those are bad picks. But if Ben's going to keep getting these closers year in and year out, maybe we need to adjust as a league to his draft strategy. Just saying.
Yeah, I agree. I think once he got Kenley Jansen, maybe should have changed my outlook, and honestly probably should have went for Chapman.
I mean, you and I didn't have an opportunity to stop it. He was drafting at the other end of the round from us, and was only had 3 guys in between him and the end of the round. So it was 3 picks, then the next round started, and 3 picks, and he was back to him. I
guess it's saying, as a league, besides Bobby doing that, everybody else go pick the next best closer. Yeah,
just go fucking slam closers and make sure Ben doesn't do this again, because Ben is dominating this league with him. Let's jump to round 8. Round 8 will be the best pick of round 8 is going to go to Jason Ashby with Rafael Devers. This kid has been absolutely everything that the Red Sox thought he could be as a rookie. He's being amazing. He's hitting .324 with a .377 on base, 16 homers, 62 RBIs, 69 runs scored. Nice. The breakout season is upon us. It's here. He's on pace for 30 and 100. He's going to be a top 3-round pick next year. Watch it. Bank on it. Worst pick of the round is going to go to Ari Nisman. Unfortunately, 2 picks before Devers, he went and got Travis Shaw at 124. Travis Shaw has been an absolute bust. Might be the worst player that was drafted in the top 8 or 9 rounds. He's hitting 164 with 6 homers, 13 RBIs, only 18 runs scored. He's been up and down from AAA. He's been bad. He's been absolutely bad, and it's almost come at the detriment of a guy like Keston Hiura, who's the Brewers' top second base prospect. Came up and did really well while Shaw was down. but they decided to keep playing Travis Shaw and sent Hara back down. Now, obviously that's changed, so it's good to see Hara in the lineup. But man, for a guy who hit 30 homers each of the last 2 years in 17 and 18, and drove in 100 runs in 17 and 85 plus in 2018, he just fell off a cliff, and I don't know what happened. The most interesting pick of round 8 will go to Barry Nisman of Yadier Molina. Now, this round had 2 aging catchers go in Molina and Posey, and those are not guys I wanted. Those were not guys I was targeting. That was not where I wanted to be drafting a catcher, was that early. Unless, Gary Sanchez or, unless Gary Sanchez fell to me. What I found interesting was these 2 guys went before 2 of the best closers, or 2 of the best catchers in the league went. But I'll get to that in a minute. Molina is old as hell, but he hit 20 homers last year, so could this really continue? It doesn't really look like it. He's still hitting 261, but walk numbers are down, on-base percentage numbers are down, homers and RBIs are down, run totals are down. It's another season on that body. It's another season of Molina having to carry the Cardinals, from the catcher position with that pitching staff, and he's just. It's almost time to let him go. It's time to let him walk off into the sunset. He's an absolute Hall of Fame catcher. I hope that this guy becomes a manager after his career, because he'll be fantastic at that. My pick this round was Matt Chapman, the aforementioned Matt Chapman, at 122. This guy fell so far. 21 homers, 52 RBIs, 59 runs scored. Coming off of a year where he hit 24 homers and 68 RBIs with a 356 on base. I don't understand how I got this guy 3 rounds after Vlad Guerrero. He's absolutely tearing it up this year, and I just wish there was a way for me to get him into my lineup so I didn't have to trade him to you, who turned around and traded him to Bobby.
Joe, with a guy like Matt Chapman, I absolutely love him for a points league.
Yeah.
I really do. If we're talking straight up points, but I think across the board, when you're looking at a category league, he's not going to get me in some of those much-needed categories, throughout the week that he plays.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that I can say about Matt Chapman. Amazing player, just has had a great career. But from a fantasy standpoint, I just don't like him in a category system.
Okay.
If it's straight up points, I'll take him every day.
Yeah.
A week.
Okay.
Get you high points.
He's definitely on pace for a 30 and 90 season this year. So Bobby got himself his third baseman. Your pick was Charlie Morton, who has been fantastic this year, who's now on my team. It looks like we swapped 8th round picks, actually. 10-2 with a 232. Go ahead and tell me about Charlie Morton.
Honestly, once again, what worried me was his age. Mm-hmm. Did I know that he could, he has it in him to still be a number 1 starting pitcher? Sure. But I guess the fear was maybe towards the second half of the season that he would just drop off a little bit. And that's what I think in that trade we had, the fact that the Padres sent down Paddock early, I thought, man, probably take a chance, get Chris Paddock, and hope that the younger kid has a little bit of a better second half.
Yeah, and we'll get to Paddock in the later rounds. That's another great pick. You took Charlie Morton. All right, let's jump to round 9. We'll jump to round 9. Best pick of round 9, Wilson Contreras. Now, when I hit on Posey and Molina earlier, it's absolutely shocking that those 2 guys go ahead of Wilson Contreras, who has been arguably the best catcher in baseball this year. 286 average, 18 homers, 52 RBIs, 49 runs scored, a 381 on base percentage. Jason gets him at pick 131, and it's just he's anchored that Cubs lineup with Rizzo and Bryant and Baez, and it's the reason that the Cubs are in first place. Contreras has been fantastic. Worst pick of the 9th round is going to go to Frank Bucco. He took Mike Foltynewicz as his number 2 starter behind Chris Sale, And I remember thinking to myself, or saying in the chat that, Frank, that was a terrible pick. And he says, yeah, but he's going to be really good. I said, but you just took your number 2 pitcher of an injured guy. He's not going to start the season. And guess what? He came back, and he was awful. He threw in 11 games. He has a 6.37 ERA. You know, he was terrible. He was terrible. I called it then, and I'm saying it now. Worst pick of that round. Most interesting pick was Nelson Cruz at 140 to Andy Solar-Greco. Now, Andy kind of pigeonholed himself here by taking Nelson Cruz, and who's only utility eligible. You know, he had just taken a few other interesting players like David Peralta and a couple of other. I can't remember exactly where it was, but how was he going to finish constructing the roster at this point while putting an immovable giant slugger in one position that is so versatile? Literally anybody could play there, but you have to play this guy every day because he's going to hit 30 homers. My pick this round, and it's the worst pick of my draft, was Cody Allen. I had to jump on the relief pitcher train, and I got to the party very late. I got to the party very, very late here. You know, I had to grab Matt Chapman where I did, so, you know, I lost out on a guy like Raisel Iglesias. I lost out on a guy like David Robertson. But Cody Allen I had high hopes for because he was a really good closer in Cleveland before they let him go for Brad Hand. And I thought, well, if he's going to go to the Angels, it's a good situation. He has the ability to reconstruct his career. And if he can put together a 30-save season on a one-year deal, he might be able to keep this thing going. He was terrible. He's been released. He's now in the Minnesota farm system, and I don't know that we'll see him playing Major League Baseball again. James, your pick was Jake Lamb, who was equally bad. Tell me about Jake Lamb.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of amazed to put Jake Lamb as the worst pick of all for that round. You know, Joe, that kind of goes back to, I think we were talking about this before, when teams in spring training kind of get hyped, or MLB wants to kind of put them up there. And you look at the Diamondbacks, who traded let one walk, traded the other one of their top players, that they're really trying to profile Arizona's young talent, right? Mm-hmm. And they're trying, you think, is this year Jake Lamb steps up? Is he going to be better? That was my hope in that pick. And it turns out he has just, barring some injuries, has just been terrible.
Yeah,
I'll never go after that kid ever again. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, he was injured a lot last year. Only played in 56 games after back-to-back seasons of 29 and 30 homers. You know, he came into last year with a lot of hype. Came into this year, you know, and he's going to be the guy. You know, Paul Goldschmidt was gone. Mm-hmm. He's going to play first base every day. And then he goes ahead and, tears apart his quad or something and misses, everything. He's only played 14 games this year. So...
Yeah, and even in those 14 games, nothing that stellar.
No,
you know what I mean?
No,
he wasn't that good.
And Christian Walker has come up, so he's going to steal playing time from him. I'm concerned that Jake Lamb might be the next guy to go out of Arizona.
I think so.
Yeah,
been a decent run, I guess, but that test is over, right?
Yeah,
I think Arizona's going to move on.
All right, we'll move on to round 10. Best pick of that round is going to go to Nick Homan at 153 with Shane Bieber. I really liked Shane Bieber, and I wanted to grab him here, and again, I get sniped by one pick. Nick continued to... The thing about my draft was I wanted guys, and I kept getting sniped by one pick. You know, whether it was James Santangelo or whether it was Nick Homan. And Nick sniped me of Shane Bieber. I wanted this guy really badly. And he's actually been what I kind of expected Trevor Bauer to be. You know, 141 strikeouts and 112 in the third innings with a 101 whip and a 3.45 ERA. That is where I pegged Trevor Bauer to be. And Bauer hasn't been, but Bieber has. And Bieber, the MVP of the All-Star game. How the hell does that happen? He's been great. Round 10's worst pick, well, Frank Bucco follows up his terrible pick of Mike Fultonevich with an equally terrible pick of Kyle Freeland, who's even worse than Fultonevich was. He had a 2018 of a 285 average, a 285 ERA with a 1.25 WHIP over 200 innings. That was absolutely unsustainable as a Colorado pitcher. Half of his games were going to come at home, and there was absolutely no way he could follow up that year with anything even remotely close to it. I was off of him. I wasn't even in the same fucking state as this guy. I didn't want anything to do with him. And he proved me right. 59 innings, a 7.13 ERA, and he's in the minors again, and he's just bad. He's just bad. The most interesting pick is Yusei Kikuchi, the rookie for Seattle who comes over from Japan. Could this be somebody good, or could this be, somebody like Keigawa? Was this going to be Masahiro Tanaka, or was it going to be Daisuke Matsuzaka? There's no in-between with Japanese pitchers. You're either good or awful. And, Kikuchi may be, that middle-of-the-road guy. He's pitched to a 4.94 ERA. He's more bad than he is good. My pick this round was Eduardo Rodriguez, who's now on your team, James. I really thought that this kid could have a breakout season. He had a decent season in 2018 with a 3.82 ERA. The peripherals were coming, and I thought if he could stay healthy, he could definitely step to the next level. He's been healthy, but he's been bad, man. He's got a 9-4 record, which is nice, but that's more because of the team he plays on, not indicative of how good he's been. 106 strikeouts is about a strikeout an inning. His WHIP is 1.34, which is kind of ugly. I'm disappointed that he was going to be he was my third starter, and he's been very disappointing, and I'm glad I traded him off. Your 10th round pick goes back to what I was saying about Kikuchi of Japanese pitchers who are either going to be terrible or good. You took Kenta Maeda, and Maeda's been good this year.
He has been. It's funny, basically we just swapped picks down the road here.
Yeah, we swapped eighths, we swapped tenths, it's funny.
Maeda's been really great this first half of the season, and, is this going to be his best season ever? It's really hard to say. I mean, we're looking at a guy who last year had, 8 wins. He's had 2 years with double digits at 13 and 16. Previous years, of course, 2016 being that year with 16. Do I think he's going to hit that point? It's hard to say, man. Maeda's looked great, but can he keep it going? It's hard to say, like I said. But at the time when picking him up I believe he would have been my third starting pitcher. I felt I was in a great spot for sure.
Yeah, I see Maeda finishing. I see Maeda finishing the year with about 12 or 13 wins. Probably very similar to his 2017 season, where he went 13 and 6 with a 4.22 ERA. My thing is, I want to see him continue to pitch, and I want to get him up to 160, 170 innings this year because he hasn't done it each of the last 2. So if he can give me another 50 to 60 innings this year, I will be a very happy man, and that trade will work out for me.
Sure. I still believe that Eduardo Rodriguez has the opportunity to kind of turn it around here in the upcoming months for sure.
Sure, he's got every opportunity to, and the Red Sox are probably going to make a run, but he's just so maddening, man. He's so frustrating because you'll get starts like he had at home against Colorado on May 15th. 6 innings, 10 strikeouts, 1 walk, 5 earned runs.
Yeah. It's funny. I was going to say, it's funny, though, you can see the trend in round 10 of just pitching heavy.
Yes.
When you really look at it, you can kind of tell the feel at the time where everybody was at.
Everybody's starting to load up on their pitchers in rounds 10 and 11.
Exactly.
Well, that'll bring me to round 11, and the best pick of the round is going to go to you, James. It's it's one of the top 3 or 4 best picks of the entire draft. It's Hyunjin Ryu, man. Tell me about Ryu.
You know, honestly, when I picked him up, I thought he could also be a number 1 guy at that point, and he's just been plagued by injuries throughout his career. And it's one of those cases of when he's healthy, he has been amazing. And it's just, unfortunately, you know, his stats don't look as impressive because of his injury-plagued career so far.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you got to be healthy one year, right? Let's hope it's this year.
Yeah, I mean,
keep it that way.
Yeah, last year he was really good in the 82 innings he pitched. You know, he pitched basically half a season, 15 games, and pitched to a 1.97 ERA. So this existed. This was here. This was there to be found.
Yeah.
The question was, will he stay healthy? And you know, 3 years in a row, he did not pitch to very many innings. So if this is the season he stays healthy and goes 200 innings, you've got yourself gold right there.
Oh, yeah. And let's say it's just always been hinging on that one contingent of if he stays healthy.
Yeah.
All the signs have been there. And he's always trended to being a good pitcher when healthy. It's just been the biggest red flag, I think, when anyone drafts that kid for the past couple of years is his health.
Yeah. Yeah. Worst pick of this round, I'm going to go with Andrew McCutchen, who was playing really well for Nick's team until he tore his ACL and is done for the season. You know, I could have gone with guys like Miguel Cabrera, who's been kind of disappointing, Brandon Nimmo, who's been awful. But you know, having a guy like Andrew McCutchen actually do well and then absolutely just end his season like that, you know, that's really disappointing. You hate to see something like that. The most interesting pick of the round is going to go to Dallas Keuchel with Ari at 165. You know, Ari took Craig Kimbrell in round 6, Dellin Betances in round 10, and now Ari adds another long wait game to his roster with Keuchel. And we've said it all season, was he going to be able to survive the waiting game? I've said it with Ben for the last couple of weeks, he is right there at where I'm about to call his season done. But if he's able to get another couple of wins along the way, especially the next 2 weeks, he could get right back into this thing. It's just, he is so close to being done because of picks like this. It's just disappointing. My pick this round was Yohan Moncada at 167. I loved Yohan Moncada coming into the season. I loved him last year when I traded for him. And you know, he's the guy the White Sox got in the Chris Sale trade. I thought he would have 20-20 upside with a ridiculous ceiling of like 35 and 20. I probably won't get the 20 steals, but he's got 16 homers, 48 RBIs. He's hitting 308 with a 364 on base percentage. He's going to strike out a ton. He led the league in strikeouts last year with 217. His strikeout numbers are down this year, and that's the big thing I wanted to see. I was really hoping he would improve his eye at the plate. He's on pace for close to 30 homers for me. I will take that every chance I can get out of a middle infielder.
You know, it goes back to the point, Joe, that it's right now with what the White Sox have, it's hard to stay away from those kids and drafting them.
Exactly.
Because you just know that one day they're going to explode and be a top-tier team.
Yeah. Yep. We'll move to round 12, and this is another round where we have one of the top 3 or 4 picks of the draft. It goes to Bobby Russo at 192. He drafts Josh Bell at the end of round 12. 302 average, 27 homers, 84 RBIs, 69 runs scored, 30 doubles. This guy is having an absolutely monster season, the likes of which we haven't seen in a long time. You know, he doesn't have the home run totals that Bellinger and Yelich do, but he's right there with them. He has more RBIs than them. He's got more doubles than them. His on-base percentage is good. He's an absolute beast and deserves MVP considerations this year. It's probably the best offensive pick of the draft, and Bobby is reaping the rewards of it.
I was thinking that too, honestly, when looking at this yesterday, that Bobby's pick there might go, probably by the time we review this at the end of the year, that's probably the second, between one of the top 3 picks of the whole draft.
Absolutely.
Easily.
Absolutely. The worst pick of the draft is going to go to Ben. He took Brad Boxberger, who he thought was going to be the Kansas City closer. He hasn't been. He's been terrible. He pitched to a 5.40 ERA. He hasn't thrown on the team since June the 23rd. He's just been bad. He got demoted from the closer role. They added Ian Kennedy to that role, and Ben ended up with him anyway. Interesting pick. Goes to Andy Solar-Greco with Billy Hamilton at 181. I find it interesting that he went with Billy Hamilton, a light-hitting speedster, in the 12th round when guys like Piscotty, Upton, Eloy Jimenez, Austin Meadows, Byron Buxton, Nick Markakis, they were all still on the board. And he goes with a guy like Billy Hamilton, who's going to hit the bottom of the Kansas City order. He has no home runs. He's hitting .217. He's only got 16 steals. It could be argued that he's the worst pick of the draft, but I just found it weird that was the guy that Andy went with there. My pick this round was Eloy Jimenez. Eloy Jimenez would have been the Vlad Guerrero of this draft if Vlad Guerrero didn't exist. This guy was all the hype last year and never saw the majors. Chicago kept him down all season despite having an absolutely ridiculous season in AAA. He got off to a really slow start this year, and he's just starting to come to life as the season unfolds here. He's got 16 homers. He's hitting .241. He's got a ton of strikeouts to very few walks, and that's to be expected of a rookie like this. But man, the ceiling is so high for this kid. He's gonna be a 40 homer monster. He's gonna hit 300 in his prime. I can't wait to see this kid what he's gonna be in a couple of years. But I had to get my hands on him. And again, it goes back to what we were talking about Chicago's roster and how good that roster is going to be.
And plus, too, Joe, it hits on the fact that, like I said, Matt, when you see these young kids come across your pick, or the ability to get them, that it's hard. The temptation's not hard to be like, you know what? I want that guy on my roster.
Yeah.
Just because you don't know. Like, it's, how do I put this? It's feast or famine, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
It's just always hard to go pass on those picks.
Yep. You took Jonathan Scope, who came off of a really terrible season last year between Baltimore and Milwaukee, but has put it together quite nicely for Minnesota this year. You had hit on it earlier that you were high on the Minnesota lineup, and here's your first pick of that lineup. Go ahead and tell me about Jonathan Scope.
Honestly, I think that's just a cultural thing. Finally being on and I get it, he was on Milwaukee towards the end, but it's hard to take that season last year, being with the Orioles for a part of time and judge him off of that. And it just goes back to, once again, going into a proven team, into a good lineup. It just really elevates some players. And I thought he would have been the beneficiary of that, honestly. And it's proven to be right.
Yeah.
I mean, you get with a good, talented squad, and it raises you up. Prime example of that is like you and I were talking about with Puig.
Yeah.
And sometimes the guys around you will help you elevate to become a better hitter. And I think that's the case with him at this point.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll jump to round 13 now. Best pick of that goes to Mike Sherman at number 202, who took Luke Voit. Luke Voit has also been one of those those guys on the Yankees teams that has stayed healthy despite his injury currently. 280 average, 393 on base percentage, 17 homers, 50 RBIs, 53 runs scored with 49 walks. He's been fantastic, and I remember really early on in the season thinking whether or not Luke Voit was going to be real. He had a great second half of last year. In fact, he was on my team toward the end of the year last year and helped me win the championship. He was a monster last year, but I didn't know if that was going to translate to a full season. And very early on, I saw him in a fucking moonshot to center field out to Monument Park in Yankee Stadium, and I went, oh, this might be real. This might be legit. It obviously has been, and Mike has reaped the benefits of that. The worst pick of the round is Alex Reyes, 204 to Andy Soler-Greco. I feel like Andy is just piling on the bad picks at this point. Alex Reyes is another one of those kids that we talk about where it's almost too tempting to not draft. But this one backfired bad because this kid just cannot stay healthy. I would really love to see this kid because I think he's a real deal. But man, if his body just can't keep up with the expectations of Major League Baseball, man, this is disappointing. The most interesting pick, James, is going to be yours. It's going to be Byron Buxton. Buxton came off of 2018 as an absolute abstract disaster. You know, he had 156 in 28 games. He was hurt. He was in the minors. He was just awful. And we saw the second half of 2017 as what he could be. So what were we going to get this year? And I think you've got yourself a really good fourth outfielder here. Tell me about Buxton.
Well, it kind of goes back to, I think, the early conversations that we both believe the Minnesota Twins were going to be good. And I fully believe Buxton was going to be a part of that. And it's funny for such a high prospect. It's something that we've all just been waiting for. When's it going to happen, right?
Right.
When's he going to be the Byron Buxton that most scouts, most analysts have him being? And I guess 1 year it had to happen, right? Like 1 year it would just have to click for him. Now I'm hoping it continues to be this year.
Yeah.
Where we see that top tier guy become the kid that we thought he'd be.
Yeah, he's got 9 homers, he's got 12 steals, he's played 73 games, which is what you want to see. On pace to play like 140, 150 games. If he could give you, 15 homers and 25 steals, you'll take that every single season from this guy. He doesn't. The thing about it is, I think so many times in baseball, you hear about these top prospects, and they absolutely have to be, the end all be all. Every single one of them has to come in and be Bryce Harper. That's not necessarily true. Byron Buxton could very well be a 15 homer, 20 steal guy who hits 270 in the bottom half of the Twins order, and that's serviceable. There's nothing wrong with that.
Oh, for sure.
That's a guy you can have on your fantasy team.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. It's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
To be, Mike Trout, to be Bryce Harper. Mm-hmm. And honestly, we look at he was a first-round pick. Mm-hmm. I believe he was, second overall, right?
Yeah, I think he was, second overall.
Yeah. But, a solid career would be the stats you gave us.
Yeah.
Or just put out there.
Yeah.
So I'd be happy with that.
My pick was another young guy who was a top prospect in Andrew Haney at 199. He had a pretty serviceable 2018. He threw to 180 innings, which I liked to see. And I thought, okay, you pitch to a 4.15 with 180 innings, 180 strikeouts. If you can stay healthy, you can take that next step. And as soon as he got hurt, I threw him back onto the waiver wire. I'm like, I'm not going to play this game with Andrew Haney. I took a shot on him. He's he's thrown 8 games. He's been bad. He's got a 5.18 ERA. Fine. I think I learned my lesson with Andrew Haney. I'm not going to draft him again. Maybe he has a breakout season, somewhere down the line, but it'll be on somebody else's team. I'm done with that guy. Round 14, we'll jump to round 14. Max Kepler is going to be the best pick of this round to Ari at number 220. And, he's already this year set a career high in home runs with 21. He will set a career high in RBIs in either late July or early August. His career high RBIs is 69. Nice. He's at 55 currently. Ari dropped him in April, and Jimmy Dunlap scooped him up and has been absolutely reaping the rewards ever since. I'm just going to read word for word my notes here. Worst pick, round 14, Odubel Herrera, number 215, Mike Sherman. Piece of human garbage. I'm not going to spend any more time on this guy. The most interesting pick was Nick Senzel, number 222 to Jason Ashby. It's another guy, much like Buxton, much like Eloy Jimenez, much like Andrew Haney, that we talk about of being a hot rookie with a high upside. My concern with Senzel coming into the season, and Jason grabbed him at 222, was, is he going to find the playing time? Would he produce at a major league level? Because the infield was pretty stacked with Suarez and Jeanette and Peraza and Derek Dietrich. The outfield, they traded for Matt Kemp and Yasiel Puig. Scott Schebler was still there. Jesse Winker was still there. So the offense was pretty stacked. The question was, would Senzel find time? And he has, thanks to the releasing of Matt Kemp, the injury to Scooter Jeanette. A lot of things have lined up for Senzel to get time. He's hitting 263, 8 homers, 8 steals. This is another kid. If he goes 15-15 this year, you really like what you get out of him. My pick this round was Shane Green, who got 30 saves last year despite an ERA north of 5. He turned into a lights-out closer for the Tigers in the first half with a 109 ERA and an 088 whip with 34 strikeouts and over 33 innings. He already has 22 saves. That's like 2/3 of what he had last year. But I ended up trading him to a guy who's on the phone right now. So, James, are you concerned that the Tigers see this guy who's put together 50 saves over the last 2 seasons and don't ship him off to a contender to be their setup guy? Say, the Dodgers, who need somebody in front of Kenley Jansen.
I guess it all goes down to what the needs are of that team that's interested in, right? I mean, I think the Tigers are willing to ship him off? Sure. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're talking about an organization that could probably in the long run use a lot of help.
Uh-huh.
I'm not trying to be mean here to any Detroit fans, but I would imagine it's just what you get at the end of the day and what that team that prospectively wants him throws out there.
Yeah.
But I feel that there could be something really worked out by the end of the trade deadline that the Tigers will find sufficient for him. So I do believe, Joe, he will probably be sent to a contender.
Okay.
Or at least that is the hope.
The hope you should have, and this is just my thought, is that the Atlanta Braves get in on him. Because if the Atlanta Braves trade for him, he becomes their closer. And you keep racking up saves. The fear is that he goes to somebody like the Dodgers to be the setup guy for an already established closer.
True. I would love to see him with Atlanta. I mean, I'm not a Braves fan by any means, but from a fantasy standpoint, the Braves are a talented team, and I think it's a system he'd work well in, honestly.
Yep. Your pick in the 14th round was Nick Pivetta. Go ahead and tell me about Nick Pivetta.
It's one of those cases of looking at the organization that he's on. I guess I was expecting a little bit more of Nick Pivetta, maybe a year where we start to see improvements. Mm-hmm. Not double-digit wins, but a little bit of a higher inning count with maybe strikeouts. It just really hasn't been the case.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Quick to drop him,
Yeah, I can agree with you on that.
From the very beginning,
I would have expected double-digit wins with the lineup that was in front of him. He had 7 wins last year with a 4.77, but the strikeout numbers were good. The peripherals underneath were looking pretty good. He was definitely a guy that experts were saying could take the next step, be a guy in that rotation to back up Nola and Arrieta as the number 3 and be really good. When I saw you drop him, I just sort of watched him to see what he was doing in the minor leagues. He was pitching well, so I scooped him up when he came back. And I did get the complete game against Cincinnati, but then the wheels have fallen off again, man, and his ERA is almost 6. I ended up dropping him as well. It's just a lost season for him, in my opinion. I don't think he's going to be able to right the ship here.
Oh, neither do I. And honestly, too, when you look at it, he is definitely getting a decent amount of run support from the Phillies. It's just he hasn't taken that step, man. And even next year, in the draft, where do you take a kid like this? I feel he'll probably fall even further back.
Oh, yeah. I don't see him being in the top 20 rounds. I think somebody takes a flyer on him in the late rounds and hopes for the best.
Yeah. I agree. I think so, too.
Yep. Round 15, we kick off, and we are going to go and highlight DJ LeMahieu as the best pick at number 232 to Nick Homan. I said it last week on the show that DJ LeMahieu was the signing that the Yankees made that pissed off their fan base because it wasn't Manny Machado. And they're so used to getting every, big name player to $1 zillion, and this wasn't it. This was a guy who's a professional hitter. He's won batting titles, and, he's very versatile. Well, 336 average, 383 on base percentage, 12 homers, 63 RBI, 65 runs scored, 21 doubles. This guy's been really good. And, to get him in round 15 as a middle infielder for Nick has been amazing.
I think he'll be another one, too, Joe, that at the end of the season, looking back on it, definitely more of a top-tier pick than where he went.
There's one pick that's coming that is better than is just almost the only one I would say would be better would be the Josh Bell pick, but this one's pretty close. This one's pretty close. Worst pick of the draft, and you know where I'm going with this one, buddy. It's Drew Steckenrider, number 239. He was awful. Tell me about him.
I don't know. I must have been smoking crack at that.
I mean, look, he was.
Why I would touch any player off of Miami in the first place? That is really beyond me.
Yeah, there was a talk that he was going to be the closer, so I can understand why you grabbed him. But man, he was bad.
Yeah, he is. Once again, maybe it's an organization I just stay away from.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have no excuse for that one.
The most interesting, it was bad. It was bad. The most interesting pick of this round goes to Mike Sherman, number 234 of Jeff McNeil. McNeil had a really nice rookie season. The question was, could he keep it up? He absolutely has. He's an all-star. And the thing about it is, the thing I found interesting is, Jeff McNeil was an all-star playing left field. He's not a left fielder. He's only playing left field because they couldn't get his bat into the lineup if he stayed at second or third. I thought he'd be the third baseman, but I digress. It was a good pick by Mike there, and he pairs it, very nicely with a few other picks on his team. My pick at 231 went to Joe Musgrove. Now, this was another guy, much like my picks earlier of Haney and Eduardo Rodriguez, was a guy that I liked to take the next step, and he really did in April and May. I got pretty frustrated with the Pirates organization for pushing him that extra inning after he gave them, in some cases it was 5 shutout or 1 run. Some cases it was 6 innings. A couple of times it was 7. One time he went into the 9th. He would give them everything he had, and Clint Hurdle looked at him and go, okay, go give me one more. And that was where the problem was. They didn't know when to say enough is enough with Joe Musgrove. They didn't know when the limit was. And it's hurt him in a lot of cases. I still like the kid. I probably will be picking him up next year as well. But, he's pitched to basically his same numbers. A 4.15 ERA, about a little less than a strikeout an inning, 6 wins, 7 losses. If he could ever put it together and have a full season where he pitches like he has in a lot of these starts, the San Diego start recently, the Houston start recently, a lot of these starts are really, really good, and I hope the kid puts it together and has a great season. We'll jump to round 16, and James, you followed up the worst pick of round 15 with the best pick of round 16, and that's Sonny Gray. Tell me about Sonny Gray.
Honestly, it's a guy that I picked beforehand. Remember when he was with the Athletics? Mm-hmm. I think initially when I was in the bigs, and he had some decent years there. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, ballpark is a huge factor for a starting pitcher, right? I mean, when he was in New York, a lot of people and analysts kind of knew that it just wasn't really going to work out for him. But going to Cincinnati, you're thinking he's going to pitch half his games there. Should actually favor him a lot of his starts, and it really has. I think the most deceptive thing about Sonny Gray is the win-loss category. Because really he's put together an amazing season. He was an alternate for the All-Star game, ended up filling in, and he's just kind of looked a little bit like the Sonny Gray of Oakland, and it's just good to see. I'm not talking about that 2017 thing, with Oakland.
No.
I'm talking about beforehand,
Yeah.
But yeah, he's definitely looking pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. You hit it on the head with the ballpark, right? He's actually better in Great American Ballpark than he is on the road. He's 4-2 with a 3.44 ERA at home and 1-3 with a 3.79 on the road. I didn't think that this was going to be a good move for Sonny Gray going to that tiny ballpark, but it's actually everything that he absolutely needed. Some guys just can't play in New York, Sonny Gray obviously couldn't. Randy Johnson couldn't. There were a couple of guys along the way that just couldn't play in New York, and Sonny Gray's turned his career around with this season. The worst
we're looking at and 2014 and 15 had 14 wins apiece. I mean, there was some flashes there of a lot of talent with this guy. You just hope that's there somewhere still, right?
Yeah, I mean, even last year, though he pitched pretty poorly in New York, he did have 11 wins. That's kind of indicative of the Yankees' offense than it is anything else. But he's 5-5 right now. If he can give you double-digit wins, that's everything you could ask for in round 16.
Oh, it'll definitely be reviewed as a better pick. Absolutely. Year.
Absolutely.
He gets me those double digits.
Round 16's worst pick, we're going to go back to Andy Solagreco here. He picked Jeurys Familia. Familia has been an abstract disaster as the setup man in New York. I don't know what it is with the Mets and their bullpen, but holy shit. They ruined Jeurys Familia. They've ruined Edwin Diaz. And it's like every guy that they send off, Ben and I were talking about it last week, every guy that they sent off has done better. Hansel Robles, Anthony Swarzak, they're all doing better than the guys that they've kept. It's fucking terrible. The most interesting pick of the round goes to Mike Haber, Teoscar named Desire, who took Garrett Hampson at 255. This kid coming into the season, he had an absolutely huge spring. He and Ryan McMahon were just crushing the ball in spring training, and it was a thought that he would be the starting second baseman while Daniel Murphy moved over to first base. That didn't happen. He was pretty bad for the season. He only hit 1 home run. He's only got 8 RBIs. He's only got 4 steals. He's just been really bad, and it's pretty disappointing to see that. My pick this round at 250 was Zach Britton. He's probably the best setup guy in the game, and if anything happened to Aroldis Chapman, I had a great closer. That's all I have there. We'll jump to round 17. The best pick of that round goes to Ari Nisman of Shohei Ohtani. Now, we've talked about the fact that Ari has taken, high upside guys and guys that were the long waiting game. Ohtani falls into this pigeonhole of only being utility eligible, and we've talked about it all season. He's got Vlad and he's got Arenado, and with Ohtani, one of those 3 guys can't play every day, and it's kind of been at the detriment of Shohei Ohtani because this guy's been solid. 303 average, 353 on base, 14 homers, 38 RBIs, 28 runs scored. He hit for the cycle earlier this year. He's been great, and it's kind of a shame that he's been kind of on Ari's bench more times than not. The worst pick of the round, I'm going to give to Wellington Castillo, who went to Mike Haber. 190, number 258. It was good in theory. Castillo had an interesting season last year with the PED suspension, so he comes back and is, going to be the guy that he was a few years ago. It's not the case. 196 batting average, 5 homers, 15 RBIs, 7 runs scored. He's been injured, and in his stead, James McCann came up and has been raking, so he kind of took that guy. He took his gerb. The most interesting pick of the round goes to James Santangelo, who took Luke Weaver at 262. Now, Luke Weaver was a kid I had 2 years ago when he was a rookie, and he pitched really well. He pitched really well as a rookie. 7-2 record, 3.88 ERA, and I took him last year, and I took him pretty high, and he was fucking terrible. So he was the piece that got traded to Arizona in the Goldschmidt deal. The question was, which version would you get? The question was, would he take the next step in Arizona? And he's been pretty good until he got hurt. And it's a shame that this kid got hurt. He had, it looks like right forearm tightness. I don't know if he's out for the season or what, but, it's just a shame. My pick went to Jesus Luzardo, which was one of the top 2 pitching prospects coming into the season. I loved this kid, and I'm hoping that he's able to overcome this new injury that he's got. He hasn't pitched this year, and it's kind of a shame. I've already dropped him, but it's kind of a shame. James, your pick was Willie Peralta, relief pitcher for Kansas City. Tell me about Willie Peralta.
Honestly, that was really more of a, let's call it desperation pick, right? That's a relief pitcher. It's a kid that, he's shown to have a few saves before. Not really a high win-loss guy. Honestly, it's a player that I think I hung on to for maybe a little too long. Honestly, that and Kansas City just have their struggles, right? So
yeah.
Always dangerous taking any relief pitcher from that roster there.
Yeah. Let's jump to round 18, and this might be the pick of the draft. If it's not, it's definitely one of the top 3 or 4. The best pick of the round goes to Mike Sherman, who took Big Meat Polar Bear Pete Alonso with number 279. 280 batting average, 372 on base percentage, 30 homers, 68 RBIs, 57 runs scored, and 21 doubles. How fucking awesome is this kid? He is the future of the Mets organization, and I hope to God that we don't fucking ruin him like we have other people. The worst pick of the round goes to Andy Solar-Greco again. This time he took Sung-Hwan Oh, who was supposed to be the setup guy in Colorado. He is now out with a left abdominal strain, and he pitched to a 9.33 ERA. Holy shit, he's bad. The most interesting pick of the round goes to Eduardo Escobar. Chris Levy picked him up at 275. He's 296, 353 on base, 18 homers, 67 RBIs, 58 runs, and 20 doubles. My pick of Wilmer Flores was supposed to be their second baseman coming into the season, and I thought that Wilmer would finally get regular playing time. He'd be able to, to step his game up, and I picked the wrong infielder. I should have taken Eduardo Escobar. I didn't have the chance to. He got picked before I got to pick, but in hindsight, James, your pick was Brad Keller. Tell me about Brad Keller and the Kansas City starter that you took this year.
I'm going back to that whole Kansas City roster, right?
Yep.
Brad Keller is one of those guys who's pretty solid at the beginning of the season. Do I think I've pretty much gotten the best out of him? Maybe. Unfortunately, it's just part of the culture of Kansas City, right? I mean, we're looking at a team that has had compiled quite a few losses, the wins here and there. And you got to think someone's still got to pitch for him, right?
Yep.
And every once in a while, those guys come in and they're not going to throw up the W's, man. That's why we see a higher loss percentage than win.
Yeah.
It's just kind of an organization that's rebuilding at the moment, right? Or kind of finding where they're at, their footing at this point.
Yeah.
But honestly, I thought Keller would get me a few decent starts, and he did. for sure.
Absolutely. He hasn't been terrible. Like, he hasn't been an absolute disaster. He's pitched for 4.47. He's been bad the last couple of starts. You know, his start in Seattle where he gave up 7 earned. His start in Toronto where he gave up 6 coming into the break. He's kind of skidded into the All-Star break, and his ERA is kind of ballooned. But you can't fault what he's given you, and he's been a serviceable starter for you.
Correct. I think probably one of the worst things that we're seeing right now is his inning count has drastically dropped off.
Yeah.
I'd say starting in the second half of June.
Yeah.
So, there are some telltale signs there, right?
Yeah. Yep. All right, let's jump to round 19, and round 19 might have another great pick here at season's end. Bobby comes back again and pairs Josh Bell with Ketel Marte. 289, number 289 to Bobby, 311 average, 359 on base, 20 homers, 53 RBIs, 58 runs scored, 20 doubles, and 4 steals. My question is, where would Bobby be without Ketel Marte and Josh Bell? Those two guys have kind of anchored his team this year, and he is just outside the playoffs looking in. You know, when he takes add in Mike Trout and, you know, add in Garrett Cole, those 4 guys have really carried his team thus far. He's been a really competitive team this year. Worst pick of the round goes to Mike Sherman, who took Trevor Rosenthal. Rosenthal was supposed to be the setup guy in Washington this year. For the entire season, Trevor Rosenthal has thrown 6 1/3 innings. In those 19 outs that he's gotten, he's walked 15 guys, given up 16 earned runs, and his ERA is 22.74. Holy fuck, that might be the worst pick of the entire draft. Most interesting pick this year, this round goes to Matt Kemp at 292. Ben picked him up. Kemp, and James, you're going to know this better than I would. Kemp last year was pretty serviceable with the Dodgers, even as a salary albatross that they had to hang on to. And he gets traded to Cincinnati, and somehow he just can't stay there.
Well, I think on that particular aspect, though, Joe, is look at the roster that he was on last year. I mean, you take an organization like the Dodgers, and we saw with a guy like Justin Turner. Within the Dodgers organization, he's become an amazing hitter. You take Matt Kemp, you put him on a winning team like that, his stats pick up. He starts looking good. Yeah. But then you, of course, take him out of that element, and he kind of goes back to what more realistic, right? I mean, view of what he is.
Yeah, I mean,
kind of gone back to that. It's just unfortunate we see that with players. One team you can do great, and the other team you leave, and it's more of where your stats should be at.
Yeah.
And Matt Kemp's a prime example of that.
And you know where he is currently?
Where's that?
He's signed with the Mets. He's in our minor league system.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Great pick.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
My pick this round was Joe Jimenez, number 295. He's the setup guy to Shane Green. I was concerned in case he struggled. I still wanted to have the setup guy. He was dropped when he had a couple of bad outings, and he ended up being part of the trade. Now that Green is looking like he's going to be traded away, so we could end up both having a closer out of that deal if Green goes to Atlanta and Jimenez gets the job. Your pick this round, buddy, was Hunter Renfroe, which I almost put as the best pick, considering all the homers he's hit, but the batting average, the number of strikeouts really hindered it. But tell me about Hunter Renfroe and why you grabbed him.
Honestly, I just look at that team in San Diego, and I just think there's good things ahead for them, especially for a guy like Hunter Renfroe. He's young. He's first-round talent. It's eventually going to come along, right? I mean, and I think he'll be a big part of that San Diego organization when they start to come around to actually be a playoff-bound team. So I knew this was coming for him.
Wow.
And I think even next year we'll see probably even better numbers out of him. And don't be surprised if in the second half of the season he picks up even more, maybe getting rid of some of those down times or series where he just doesn't show up for a game or two.
Yeah, I mean he's already hit a career high in home runs. He's on pace to definitely shatter his career high in RBIs. You know, my concern with him would be if the Padres decide to uncrowd their outfield and ship him out. But I mean, even then, he might end up in a better situation. First round talent is pretty bold to say, James, but if you believe in it. And he certainly has been great for you.
I was saying when he was picked up in the draft.
Okay.
It was first round, 13th pick overall, which means, there is a potential to be
gotcha.
Definitely a 10 to 12 round guy.
Gotcha.
Maybe 8 to 12 round pick in the future.
Gotcha.
So that's what I was saying. There's analysts out there and, scouts that look at this guy as having some pretty good talent. It kind of goes back to a Byron Buxton type thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, we're talking about guys who scout tons of games. Look at these kids in college and just feel that, this kid's actually worth going at that position.
Gotcha.
And like I said, in 2013, he was drafted 13th pick.
Gotcha.
First round by the Padres.
I see what. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll move to round 20, and the pick of the draft there goes to Domingo Santana at number 318 to Jason Ashby. Jason Jason had him and dropped him. I think Frank picked him up, and then Frank traded him to Ben. This guy's bounced around the league, but holy shit, he's had a good season. 286 batting average, 354 on base, 18 homers, 63 RBIs, 52 runs, and 6 steals. Why did nobody hang on to this guy? It looks like he's going to stick with Ben's team, though. The worst pick of the draft, number 320 to Bobby Russo, is Jed Lowry. What a fucking waste of money this guy's been. We fucking signed Jed Lowry 2 years, $20 million, talking about the Mets, and he hasn't played a game yet. What the fuck did we sign him for? Could we have signed, somebody better than that? $10 million a year. Well, fucking Dallas Keuchel signed for like 13. We could have had him as our 5-starter instead of, all the trash we've been throwing. Most interesting pick of the round is number 311. Mike Sherman took Tyler Skaggs. Rest in peace. We should all keep Skaggs in our thoughts. My pick this round was Chris Paddock, number 314. Paddock was the other hype pitcher coming out of spring training alongside Jesus Luzardo, but this kid was making the opening day roster, and I was excited to see him. He's pitched great. I'm concerned that second half regression will come. I was concerned about an innings limit, and you were willing to take on that risk in that big trade.
Oh yeah, and like I said, I was glad that he got sent down to the minors. The week of the transition of that trade. I was fine. I was actually in a really good spot at that point, being in first by a few games there. That I knew I could take on a guy like Chris Paddock, put him on my bench, or in the non-available spot, and ride it out till he got back. And luckily, too, San Diego really kept him there for past 10 days.
Yeah, it was only 10 days.
It was something really low. So I think actually I got one of the premier guys, or one of the better picks out of that trade. And I'm really hoping that second half regression doesn't happen. Fingers crossed, but I was feeling that it shouldn't.
Okay.
So I really like Chris Paddock.
Yeah, he's thrown 82 and a third innings this year. He hasn't ever thrown more than I think it was 120 or 130 innings. It'll be interesting to see how they manage his innings going forward. A lot of his starts recently have been 6 innings or less. So we'll see what how the Padres play this guy. But he's been fantastic this year. Your pick, buddy, this round was Evan Longoria. Tell me about Evan Longoria.
That was basically a long shot pick. He's an aging guy. I definitely need someone for the backup of that third base spot. Given who was left in the third base position, I thought, it was there, right? This is a kid that we saw early in his career, was top-tier talent, all-star material. And, you always got to hope, right? Maybe there's another season like that. Something like he can improve upon it and at least show flashes of what he used to be. And now it just raises the question is he done, right? And
He might be washed. Yeah, he might be washed.
Yeah. And at least this pick was a long shot.
Mm.
But now I got an answer, right?
Yep, absolutely.
He's not going to be the same guy, I think.
Absolutely. Round 21, pick of the round is going to be Mike Minor to Andy Solar Greco. He finally got one right. He's had like 4 or 5 really bad picks in the last few rounds, but he did land Mike Minor here. 8-4, 2.54 ERA, 114 strikeouts, and 117 innings. But Andy dropped him before March was over, so that kind of sucks. Worst pick of this round goes to Steven Souza, number 326 to James Santangelo. This kid, man, this is another kid, much like A.J. Pollock, who just can't stay healthy. He's absolutely snake bit. This time it's an ACL injury, and he's done for the year before the season even starts. The most interesting pick, number 321 to Bobby Russo, is Brett Gardner. Coming into the year, the Yankees had Hicks, Stanton, Judge in the outfield, and Bird and Voit as a first base DH combo. So the question was, how much was Gardner going to play? Well, the answer, because of injury, is fucking every day, and he's been pretty good. 15 homers, 8 steals. It's exactly what you could have asked for out of him. My pick was Mike Melanson. I thought maybe he would land the closer job in San Francisco. He didn't. I dropped him. Your pick was Jesse Chavez. Tell me about Jesse Chavez of Texas.
Jesse Chavez is a case of where I liked him as a reliever. He's definitely not starting material. It looks like the Rangers have gone that route. Mm-hmm. Probably if he's going to be locked into a reliever spot, I may have kept on to him longer. But even early in the season, there was talks about him being a starter. It's kind of like going back to our conversation of I was having with you, like Ross Stripling. Mm-hmm. I like Ross Stripling as a reliever. I just don't like him as starting material. Same case with Jesse Chavez. You've seen his career. Teams have tried that before with him. Mm-hmm. It just never really works out that great. He is what he is, right? He's a relief pitcher.
Yeah.
Let's keep it like that. And that's the main reason I took him. And like I said, just with the whispers early in the season that he was going to try the whole starting thing again, just really kind of made me back off that pick and just drop him.
Gotcha.
At that point.
Round 22, best pick of the round is going to be Jorge Polanco, number 337 to Josh Haber. Guys hit 312, 368 on base, 13 homers, 42 RBIs, 57 runs scored, and 23 doubles. Josh didn't hold on to him for a week before dropping him, and I grabbed him and have turned him into half of the Justin Verlander trade. Amazing, amazing fucking player. I thought that he was... he had the PED suspension, I think it was last year or the year before, and thought, coming into the year, again, Minnesota lineup, they're really, really stacked there. Thought this would be a great guy to add to my roster. Worst pick, and I'm going to say it now, this is the worst pick of the entire draft. It was number 343 to Mike Sherman. It was Daniel Palka of the White Sox. The guy hit 22. Not 22 homers, not 22 RBIs, not 22 hits. He hit 0-22 this season. That is 1 for 45. I think I could do that. He has one more hit than the entire Bigs League combined professionally. He might even be the worst player that's ever been drafted in the history of the Bigs. Like, that's how bad this season is. And he wasn't injured. Like, he doesn't have an injury. He just sucks. The most interesting pick of the round goes to number 348 to Ari Nisman, Alex Verdugo. Same kind of questions with Brett Gardner a round ago. Would Verdugo find time in the lineup with all of the outfielders they have? The answer's been yes because of an A.J. Pollock injury, and he's been great. My pick, number 346, was Williams Meme Machine Astudillo. How fucking great has he been just to watch on a regular basis? It's fucking awesome. I love this fucking guy. But what I find even more awesome is that this fat Bartolo Colon clone has an oblique injury now. How? James, your pick was C.J. Cron. More Minnesota lineup. Tell me about C.J. Cron.
Honestly, when picking up Crone, I thought it was always going to be a solid first base guy. Just filling into that spot. And once again, I just really had a feeling that Minnesota was going to be a high-end team this year, and they have been. Once again, going back to you got to play on the right roster, right? Sometimes to pick up your season.
Yeah.
I do have to say, though, for in this case, I do like Ari's pick. You can never go wrong with a Dodgers rookie, right?
It's very true. They do have a ton. They have a ton of rookies of the year. Going back to C.J. Cron real quick, the guy was basically a 15-homer machine in part-time play in L.A. because he was splitting time with Albert Pujols at first base. He goes to Tampa last year and hits 30 bombs, and it was definitely a sustainable thing. I thought the pick was very good for you, and if it wasn't for Jorge Polanco's breakout season, Cron might be the guy with best pick of this round. We'll jump to round 23. The pick of the draft is Fernando Tatis Jr., number 362 to Mike Sherman. He's got a 327 average, a 393 on base, 14 homers, 33 RBIs, 13 stolen bases, 46 runs. This kid's a lock for 2020 in round 23 at a middle infield position for a kid that somehow we all overlooked for 22 rounds. Amazing pick by Sherman. Worst pick of the round goes to Mike Haber. It's Tyler White, number 354. 227 average, 3 homers, 16 RBIs. He didn't make it out of March on Mike's team, but the reason I bring him up is because James Santangelo had him starting at first base for a month, and it angered me so much that I hope I influenced James in dropping him. The stat line is actually padded by 2 great games right before the break, so his 227 batting average is actually better than he's been hitting all fucking season. He's awful. The most interesting pick of the round goes to Bobby Russo, number 353 of Adam Jones. Jones signed really late in spring training to Arizona, and the question was, is he going to get up to speed quickly? Is he going to be able to contribute at a high level? And he's older. He's in his mid to late 30s, and he's outside of the AL East where you play in Yankee Stadium and you play in Fenway Park and you play in Camden Yards like an Oriole does. Would he be able to contribute? And he's been pretty good, 263 average, 13 homers, 44 RBIs. You can't ask for a whole lot more in round 23. My pick was Dylan Bundy. I like Dylan Bundy. I was hoping he would finally break out, and he's not, and he's kind of garbage, and I don't like him anymore. James, your pick was Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. I think you needed a catcher at this point, and that's why you jumped on him, but tell me about him.
Honestly, I thought there was a lot of upside to this kid, and definitely just needed the position filled. So he was probably hands down the best catcher left at the time, and I ended up not really keeping on to him for much longer because, as we saw in that Rangers lineup, he just didn't see lots guaranteed starting and playing time throughout his early games. So it's kind of a shame I had to drop him, but at the end of the day, he hasn't really had that great of a season either, so not too bad. I would like to say, though, on your Dylan Bundy pick there, I'm kind of with you on that one. I've always felt his career downside is just because he's on the Orioles. I would like to see him play with somebody else.
Yeah, if he could somehow find his way to Houston or Tampa or Pittsburgh, one of these teams that does really well with pitchers, I would love to see what this kid's capable of. He's got a ton of strikeout upside, but holy shit! Like I had him last year as well. I just wish he would be able to pitch to the aspirations that the Orioles had for him, because there was a time where Dylan Bundy was going to be the future of the Orioles organization. He was supposed to be the next Mike Messina, the next Jim Palmer, the next Eric Bedard, like one of those guys that has been great for them. Just hasn't happened.
For sure.
We'll jump to round 24. Pick of the draft goes to Barry Nisman, Brandon Woodruff, number 372. He's 10-3 with a 3.67 ERA, a 126 strikeouts over 108 innings, and a 1.14 WHIP. He's been the Brewers' ace, and the thing is, like, that was the one thing that the Brewers needed coming into the season was a frontline starting pitcher. I don't believe Woodruff is a frontline starting pitcher. I think he's pitching very well the first half. And, Barry found him in round 24. He was great. I think the Brewers would do well to trade for somebody like Madison Bumgarner, but we'll see what happens going forward. The worst pick, again, we're back to Andy Solar Greco with Michael Fulmer here. Fulmer, I think he's injured for the season. He had Tommy John. He's done. The most interesting pick goes to Nick Homan, 377 of Miguel Sano. He hit 28 homers in 2017, which made you believe he was the next great power hitter in Minnesota, much like Justin Morneau or somebody along that line. And then he played 71 games last year, got sent down to Single-A, hit 199, and he was awful. Well, you got a huge discount on him this year. And, I mean, he's not lighting the world on fire, but he's got 13 homers. He's hitting 236. He's only played 40 games. Like, he's been decent. And as a backup third baseman, first baseman option this late in the draft, that's about as good as you can ask for. My pick was Dansby Swanson. He was going to hold down the shortstop spot until Lindor came back from the injury. But when I saw Polanco on the wire, I dropped him. But both have had great seasons. Dansby Swanson is fantastic. 270 average, 17 homers, 57 RBIs, and 7 steals. James, your pick in this round was Taylor Rogers, who appears to be, up until you made the trade with me, the only closer on your roster.
Yeah, and honestly, I was just really picking him up with the hopes that he would get a high save amount.
Yep.
And that I thought a team like Minnesota would put him in position to actually have those saves. He plays on a great team, and that technically by run support, he's able to get these saves. I mean, we're looking at quite a few this year already. Mm-hmm. And I think that's actually one of my better picks right here for a later round pick for sure.
Your best late round pick is yet to come, though. We'll jump to round 25. We'll go to the final round. And the best pick of the round, I'm going to give to Nick Homan at 392 with Franmil Reyes, who's hit 25 homers, 42 RBIs, and hit 253 with a 301 on base. This guy has unbelievable power and was a great find in the last round of our draft. The worst pick is going to go back to Mike Haber here. Troy Tulowitzki. You remember when Troy Tulowitzki signed and they got him for the league minimum, and all these Yankee fans were coming out saying, oh, Troy Tulowitzki's going to have a renaissance season. He's going to be great for us because all we have to do is wait until Didi comes back. And he got hurt, and he's on the 60-day DL, and he's probably done. Like, that's the end of his career. Tulo's done. Most interesting pick, I'm going to give to Mike Sherman, 394 of Julio Urias. The questions were, could this kid find his way into the rotation, or was he going to be a bullpen arm in long relief, or were they even going to use him as a setup guy for Kenley Jansen? He's been pretty good in whatever role they've put him in. He's pitched to a 2.45 ERA. He's been good wherever they've stuck him. I would really love to see this kid as a starter, but ultimately I think this kid is going to be part of whatever you guys trade to get something at the deadline. My pick was Jimmy Nelson, number 391. He was a lottery ticket. He really didn't. He hadn't pitched since mid-2017. He was really good in 2017. Missed all of 2018 with Tommy John, and finally was coming back. And he's shit, and he's in the bullpen. James, your pick was Yandy Diaz, and up until recently, where Diaz has sort of cooled off a bit, he was going to be the pick of this round. Tell me what you saw in Yandy.
Joe, it really just came down to the side notes of that Yandy had a huge upside, but also had a huge drawback. but it's not so much how much I got him and where I got him at. It's what he's actually meant to my roster. I'm going to actually kind of break that down. When you think about, I had Jake Lamb and Evan Longoria at third. I was able to drop those guys early and rely on Yandy to kind of carry me in that spot. He's actually been a really intricate part of my roster, and it's allowed me also to sit and wait for other picks to come along. And it's kind of funny, I got this key ingredient to my roster in round 25.
Yeah.
I'd say if it hadn't been for Yandy Diaz, I probably would have made some early on, ill-advised trades for that position. And I probably wouldn't have been able to wait out for a guy like Jose Ramirez, who's starting to come back around and look really good. It kind of also goes to a guy in a draft, but I got early off the waiver wire, and Kevin Kiermaier. It's weird these players that you don't expect too much from can kind of carry your roster for a little bit of time. Funny, I put Kiermaier in my utility spot, and he helped me win a lot of games early on. And you just don't expect these things. And even though they drop off or come back to reality, they were able to put me in position to improve my roster overall. So I'm actually really always going to be grateful to Yandy as a player to allow me to even improve my roster throughout the season.
Well, there you have it, guys. That's our draft breakdown. James, thanks for being on this on here with me, man. I really appreciate it. We got it under 2.5 hours. That's really kind of the sweet spot for me, is to get it under that number. Guys, tomorrow, week 14 will break down, and I will have not one, but 2 special guests along with Benny. It's going to go up late because we're doing it at night, but it's going to be a great show. James, thank you again. This has been fantastic. Until next time, guys, it's been real, it's been fun, and it's always real fun in the bigs. Talk to you soon.